You know, Mike, we get after the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department from time to time, but you know, every once in a while, they do work. Hi everyone, welcome to today's research-informed badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Hacienda Heights, California.
BakerTargets.com is where I get the targets you see me shoot all the time on Active Self-Protection Extra. They ship fast, their prices are great, and they have all kinds of targets, both for competitive shooting, defensive shooting, and fun too. Check them out. Call that's come in here is not just a domestic, it's a stabbing. So the call that's come in on 911 is a young man having a psychotic break, has stabbed his father, then run out of the house across the street to the neighbor's house. And so officers show up to that. You can see the officer here trying to figure out what's going on. He is identifying who is who. The neighbor across the street is out in the street, out in the front yard with this young man who has just stabbed his father to death. And now our officer is trying to give them commands. He hasn't hit his badge cam yet, so there's no audio, but there's about to be. So let's listen in and hear what happens from here.
Take cover in case you recognize us, okay? Hey, listen. Okay, I'm here to help. I can't help you. Hey, sir, white shirt.
Sir.
Hello,
Sir,
you.
Can you come over here?
I know I can't talk.
Sir,
Walk
can
over
you
here.
Come over here. In the white, sir.
Sir,
Don't go back, sir. Sir.
drop that knife. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. I'm gonna shoot you if you rush him with the... Drop the knife.
Sir, get over here.
Drop the knife.
Hold on, sir. Get back, sir. Get back.
This is a picture of the knife that the young man was carrying. Unfortunately, his father, who he stabbed with that knife, did not make it, and the shot that the officer took at the young man, or deputy, proved fatal as well.
I know there's going to be a lot of comments on this one that people are going to be getting after that guy who wouldn't get out of the way. And I understand that and I agree with it. But also as somebody who has had loved ones who have struggled with mental illness, I understand why you would say, man, I'll take the risk of my own life if this is somebody that I love.
Yeah, in fact, my sister-in-law has a severely autistic son, and she told me the other day, whatever else happens, don't call the police, and that breaks my heart.
Yeah, and so I understand why you go, man, this kid has had these problems and I'm going to stay in here no matter what. So do me a favor, let's be kind to him in the comments, would we?
So we always say, Mike, that domestic violence calls are the most dangerous calls that officers go on. But this isn't even a domestic. This is a stabbing call involving domestic violence. So we know it's at the most dangerous. This is not one where you're going to play your role slow. You're going to go fast on this one. But I also think when you're rolling into that call, it's worth remembering that you want to manage your arousal level. You want to manage your heart rate here. Purposefully use that box breathing. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold, to keep your heart rate low so that you can stay in thinking mode rather than reacting mode so you can make a great decisions. It certainly seems to me that this officer, this deputy, did that, and that was really helpful for him.
Having responded to things not dissimilar to this in the past, right? So shootings, stabbings, one time an active shooter, the ability to maintain that arousal level at a reasonable place where you can show up and while being alert and ready to do whatever needs to be done, not be so geeked up that you're ineffective, not be so geeked up that you might have a negligent discharge or do something foolish, is difficult to do, but it can be done. I know because I did it and I saw other officers and deputies and agents do it as well. However, it takes practice. This is something that you need to try before you need it in the moment. Like anything else, practicing that box breathing ahead of time is probably a great idea. Try it a few times so you know what it feels like and what it's going to do to you. You might get a little lightheaded, who knows. Make sure you've done it before you find yourself in a position like this so that you know what it's like and you can actually do it effectively.
Yeah, I also want to have just great empathy on the family here, okay? Again, mea culpa, if you followed the channel for a long time, you know that this kind of stuff has affected me personally. I actually have had a family member come after me with a knife. Thankfully, I was able to take it away from him. But this kind of stuff is near and dear to me. And so I have great empathy for the family here as well as for the officers, because you're put in a situation where it's really a Kobayashi Maru. Like you just can't win here. And so the officer showing up now comes out of the car and sees, all right, we've got somebody who matches the description of the suspect who I can see has a knife in their hand, and then has somebody else next to them who looks like an innocent bystander, maybe the across the street neighbor. And so
I have to assess what's going on here. I love here, Mike, as we begin this, that our deputy assesses this using his pistol-mounted light, which is just literally chef's kiss. This is the way to use a pistol-mounted light. He's not pointing a gun at anybody. He's pointing it in a safe direction and using the spill and the bounce from that beam to illuminate and get what information he needs. That's literally perfect use of a pistol-mounted light.
Yeah, concur entirely. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I would say if you have a carbine, if you have a patrol rifle in a situation like this and you can grab it and not waste any time doing so, I highly recommend it. Only because even though this isn't the longest shot in the world, that extra barrel length, that optic, that the fact that you've dialed it in to a T at the range and you know where to hold at certain distances could potentially make a difference in a situation like this. I understand why I didn't. This is happening right now. I got to get out of the car. But if you have time to grab a patrol rifle, try to do that first. With that said, keeping that gun at a lower ready. It's not really at a low ready. And I understand that in this, where John has frozen the video here, it kind of looks like if you follow the muzzle of that, with your eye to where the third party is standing, it looks maybe like he's pointing it at him. However, what gave it away and what cued John into this is the fact that the light is down low and he's using the spill, that whole orb of light more or less is down at the foot level of the person we're looking at, and therefore we can determine from that the gun is not actually aimed at this guy, but it's giving him just enough light to assess what's going on while having a gun in his hand at the same time. And that's something you got to practice, but if you can do it, more power to you.
I also want to talk here a little bit about the neighbor. And, as a private citizen, again, this is near and dear to my heart, okay? This is personal experience stuff I'm talking about here. That I'm sure it's going to frustrate some people that the officer said, "Sir, come away," but he doesn't. Why? I mean, this isn't just a stranger to him. This is a neighbor kid he loves. This is a family he knows that they've had problems like this. He's basically ignoring the officers trying to save this kid's life and knowing that if he can't, that this kid is probably going to die tonight. And that's exactly what happens. But I want to recognize that I don't condone him ignoring the officers, but I understand it. I understand that he's trying his best at incredible risk to his own life in order to save this young man's life. And I, for one, give him kudos for bravery for that. Even though, again, it's not what I would recommend that somebody do. I can't recommend it, but I understand it, and I think it's quite brave that he did. I want to note here as well that from the officer's perspective, when he does get his gun up and on target, that as the guy kind of goes towards this young man with a knife in his hand, who has just murdered somebody with that knife. So I have no problems with the officer here going, "Oh no, this is going to be a deadly threat." I want you to recognize that right here, if our officer misses to the right and he's left-handed, the rightward miss is that hold hand grip, which is far more common. It's like a left push for you righties, that he's going to put that round into an innocent bystander. This is where your marksmanship skills have to be absolutely unimpeachable. Now, I think this deputy did have incredible marksmanship skills, but if you don't know that, Mike, you can't point a gun like this.
Yeah, and I've said this a few times before, but it bears repeating. Confidence in your skills and your equipment is so incredibly critical in a moment like this for all the reasons that John mentioned and more. Number one, being confident and really confident in your marksmanship is important because at a moment like this, there is no margin for error. As John said, if you're a right-handed shooter, you tend to miss a little low left, and then vice versa for left-handed shooters. So if he misses low right or right at all, he's potentially going to hit this innocent third party. Now, some of you, I can almost guarantee, are thinking, well, this guy put himself in that position. Too bad, so sad. They told him to move. He didn't. With all that said, that's not going to make this any better for this responding officer or deputy if he injured or maimed or killed a third party. It's not going to be any easier for him to deal with the fact that he was forced to do that. This is again, however, another really good argument for why a rifle, if you can get one in your hands, is preferable because this shot is going to be a lot easier to make. This shot right here we're looking at, differentiated between two people very close together at 15 yards or whatever this is. Distance is going to be a much easier shot with a rifle. Just something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I also want to note, as the guy comes around, the officer makes a decision to shoot him, okay? Note that the badge cam always looks farther away than it actually is. It has the fisheye lens effect, so this might be 10 yards or so to the door, and as he comes around here, I'm going to zoom it in so you can see very clearly that what we have here is a young man charging at officers with a knife in his hand who has just committed murder. Is this guy shown ability, opportunity, and manifested intent to do deadly harm? Yes. Is this suicide by cop? Almost certainly. Can the officer do something else? Probably not. Not without putting himself at incredible risk, and that's unfair to ask him to do. So is this a justified shooting? It absolutely is a justified shooting. I just want everybody to recognize, because people are going to look at this badge cam and go, Well, the kid was kind of far away. Could the officer have just run around behind his car? Except for, again, the badge cam and it's the way that the lens works on that to get a wide field of view, it skews distance and it looks a lot farther away than it is. Now, I haven't gotten the actual medical examiner's report. I don't know exactly how far the distance was from where the officer was to him, but I'm going to guess it's about 7 yards or so. And he can cover that ground so fast in less than 3/4 of a second. So it's at this point that the officer makes that decision. And Mike, I think sometimes we expect officers to make decisions that are humanly impossible. And unfortunately, I mean, again, we just can't ask a fish to fly. And so I think this is justified conduct without question.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to go back and refer to something I talked about earlier, confidence in your equipment and your ability. Even at this distance, even, with this sort of clear of a target where he's all by himself, look behind him. There's another residence, right? There's a home back there. Who knows where somebody might be in that home or behind that wall. So your marksmanship is still critical, even at this moment where he separated himself from this third party, the neighbor, whoever that other gentleman is there. Also, confidence in your equipment. Did I do a press check before I left the station, before I left my home, is not a question you want to be asking yourself in this moment or having to, rack around just to make sure to give that warm fuzzy. You need 100% confidence that A, your gun works, and that B, it's loaded. And then C, that your marksmanship is up to snuff in a really critical moment like this when you're stressed out and people's lives, your life is on the line potentially, that your marksmanship is up to snuff to make this shot and make it effectively. Neither John nor I could tell where the suspect was shot in this, but he went down very, very quickly. It looked like a headshot, not based on anything other than the way he fell and sort of turned off the electricity immediately. Great shot. Unfortunate set of circumstances, however.
Yeah, and great shot with iron sights. This officer did his work with iron sights, and you can certainly do good work with iron sights. I also like here that though he kind of rushed around to take a different tack on the guy, he didn't approach. He said, wait a minute, I got to slow my roll here. We got to establish some safety parameters here in order to make sure that everybody's safe. Recognizing as well that the stabbing victim is in another house, so we don't have to rush to get into there because once the dispatch knows that the suspect is secured, then they can get the medical attention going. This is just a terrible outcome. I mean, it's just a horrible thing. I hate everything about it. Mental health care is something I think we should address in America and really beefing up our investment in our mental health care system. Again, that's near and dear and personal to my heart, right? So I recognize that for what it is. That said, as somebody who has had similar situations to this in his own life, I completely understand why the officer did what he did, and I can't fault him for it one bit. They showed up to a terrible spot. I understand why the neighbor wants to try to save this kid's life. I hate the fact that the kid decided that he needed to commit suicide by cop and die by suicide that day at the hands of a police officer. I hate everything about this. But was the officer justified to do what he did? Absolutely. Did they respond correctly? Absolutely. Does my heart go out for the family? Absolutely. This is the reality of the world that we live in today.